Hello, and welcome to another episode of Peculiar Endeavors podcast. I am Amelie, and I am your host. The other day, I was thinking about the time when I first started with tarot, or when I got really interested in it, when I was very, very young. And back in the day, we didn't have YouTube and internet where you could just search things. So you had to have books if you wanted to learn about tarot. And I remember that I just really wanted to have a tarot deck. And I did read some books. I think I had a book. I'm not sure what book it was, but it wasn't that great. And normally decks do come with like a little booklet, so I had that. But other than that, I was just really, really happy to have a deck. And I was thinking about this the other day that if you're really interested in tarot and, you feel like you would like to have a deck if you don't have one already, or maybe you have a deck and you don't really know how to use it, you can actually use a tarot deck with your intuition. If you feel that you're very new and you don't really know where to start, yes, you can start and you can read a book as well and, practice and get more knowledge and all of that. You can do that. But I find many times when you feel really excited about something, I feel like you don't want to start reading a book about it. You want to have the deck and you want to shuffle it and you want to have cards popping out and you want to lay some spreads. And sometimes you should just do that. I know everyone is different, but I just remember I was just very eager to. I always loved shuffling cards for some reason. I'm not a great shuffler by any means, but it's just something with like shuffling cards, and I like my jumpers and jumping cards. I do like jumpers as well, but cards that jump out. And it's just another type of practice, really. And you can read a lot of books, and there's so much information now online as well. So it's so easily accessible to you. But I think a great way of, even if you are a tarot reader, even if you do have read a lot of books, I think practicing intuition as well is very powerful too. So if you are someone and you're interested in tarot and you just don't really know where to start, I would say start with getting a tarot deck. And I know it's very difficult to maybe find the deck. Maybe you will go for a deck that appeals to you, and then it might be the fact that it might get difficult because it might just be very different to like a traditional tarot deck. And as I mentioned before, I do like my Thoth deck, but you also have the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And they are slightly different from one another. And I'm not just talking about the pictures, it's just there are slight changes within the two decks. So if you are someone who is very intrigued by tarot and you would like to own a tarot deck, let me give you maybe a few tips. It might help you on the way. as I do love my Thoth deck, I think maybe this is not the easiest deck to start with. It's a little bit harder and it has a lot of symbols. So I'd say if you want to read or start reading a deck intuitively, maybe go for a classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck. You can buy them in many different prints and you can buy them, the way they look, the back of them. And I would suggest to maybe not deviate too much from the style. But I think a classic, like a nice classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck is probably something I would go for. Or maybe there's a deck that follows the same, style, but it has slightly different colors. It has to still appeal to you. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because with the Thoth deck, you have the major arcana, which is basically the same in both. And you have the court cards, which is not really the same, but they're court cards. But when it comes to the minor arcana, which is the aces, the ace through up to the 10, so all the numbers, in the Thoth deck, they're quite pippish. So they don't really depict a scene as such. It's just very heavy on different symbolisms. And if you don't really know what these symbols mean, then it might get very, very difficult to be intuitive with it. Obviously, you can. But if you're new to it, it might be very difficult to see, 3 wands crossing and feel that intuition flowing. With the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, it's much easier because you have the major arcana, which is, it goes from the Fool up to the Universe. And then you've got the court cards, and it's easier because you have the page and the knight and the queen and the king, and I think it's very easy to relate to them too. And then you have the minor arcana, which is the ace up to the 10s. You have the pictures, so these actually depict actions. And with the fact that they depict actions, it might get much easier to just read them with your intuition. Now, it's always good to have some basic knowledge, but I think the most basic knowledge that I would say you require, the more knowledge, the better. But I really wanted to kind of get into how you can, if you don't know anything about cards, tarot cards, how you can just start reading them with your intuition straight away. You buy them and you can start read. So normally they come with a little booklet. They normally don't give you a lot of information, but you still get like the basic information. You get a few words. Many times you get the upright side, and then if they land upside down. So you get normally these two kind of meanings of the cards. Now, I personally don't do upside down cards or reverse cards, but if a card does jump out and I feel like it's a reverse, then I do that. So it's really entirely up to you. And also because if you are someone that have never done anything with the tarot cards, it's pretty cool because you're kind of like a blank canvas and you can come up with the ways that you like reading your tarot. And this is also something that comes with practice, as in like you shuffling the cards and you just doing spreads. And even if you read them with your intuition, you will know how you like to do it. As for myself, I prefer when the cards jump out, but I know many people like to shuffle them. You maybe shuffle them in a certain way, and you might want to shuffle them 7 times, or you shuffle them until you stop. You take the card that is on the top, or you can cut the cards, and there's so many different things you can do, and it really depends on how you like to read it. But these are the things that will come within time. And if you're reading something with intuition, then something like this will come with intuition as well, how you like to read the cards and how the cards actually would like to be read as well. Because many times I find the paper and the actual card will tell you how, how to shuffle them, or if they jump out easily. Some cards don't really want to jump out, which I find so annoying. I have this one deck and it's really hard to shuffle because of it feels very almost velvety, and cards just don't want to jump out. But these are the things that you'll learn within time. So let me see. Let me get a tarot deck. So I've got my Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I actually never used it before this particular one, so this will be a new one from me as well. I thought it was fitting. I think the first thing, obviously, when you get a new tarot deck, you should look at the pictures yourself and get familiar with the pictures. It doesn't have to be a staring contest, but it's great if you do. But it's great to kind of flip them through and look at the pictures and see what they depict. Obviously, you have the major arcana, and then you've got the minor arcana, and then you have the court cards as well. But I think, in my opinion, what would be the only thing that you should maybe think about is what the suits are. Or actually, you don't even have to know that. But I think it's very useful to know that the wands, for example, they're the element of fire. And then you have the cups, they're the element of water. And then you have the swords, they're the element of air. And then you have the pentacles, and they're the element of earth. This is very useful to know, even when it's intuition, because it kind of indicates where things are at. So with fire and the wands, for example, fire can mean so many different things. A fire is obviously hot, it can burn things, but also within a person, a fire is also a state. You might be burning to try something, like you have a anger, for example. Maybe that's burning, or curiosity, or a personality that is very fiery. Just things like that. It's great to know these things. With the water, for example, the cups, The water is very fluid. It can be hot, it can be cold. The water is about emotions. So it's kind of like the fluidity of the water. It's quite soft in a way, and like water takes shape of the things around it. Just little things like that. The swords or the air. Maybe that's a little bit strange to have swords for the air, but when you're fighting, for example, you can hear the air in the swords. The swords are more about logic in the tarot cards. And obviously, you don't need to know that, but I think it's great to know these like simple things. And the pentacles, they're earth. So with pentacles, things will be very earthy or material. Things that a lot of people value on earth, as in material things. Because you can't take the material things into another realm. I think these are like great basics to think about. But everything else is about looking at the pictures and see what you feel and see what they do in the pictures. So obviously with major arcana, just as it sounds, I think that major arcana, all the pictures on there would be more significant. So they will depict more, in a sense, than the other cards. And I think there's obviously more details as well in them. So if a major arcana card will come up, then it might be something a little bit more important. That's also good to know. And then with the court cards, this could be also people. As you have the page, you have the knight, you have the queen, and you have the king. So this is also very useful to think about. So if you have a court card that pops up, it could also mean, it could be a person. Or it doesn't have to be, but it could be. And yeah, and the minors would be more of like actions. Okay, so here I have my deck. This is the first time I will be shuffling it, so it makes it very authentic. So you already had a card popping out. That was a lot of cards. But let me use the card that was on top. Let's pick one more. So we have 3 cards. Oop, there we go. I should have probably shuffled the cards a little bit better because I got 3 court cards. So it's not ideal, but let's go with it. The first card I've got is Knight of Wands, and then I got Page of Swords, and then Page of Pentacles. So just very quickly, you could look at the pictures and see what they're doing. Like Knight of Wands, for example, is riding on a horse with a wand in his hand, and I can see the pyramids in the background. So obviously it's a wand, so it's a very hot card. And then you have Page of Swords. The page is standing, which I find looks like a green cliff almost reminds me of Ireland a little bit. But most of it is clouds. You can just see clouds. And the page is standing holding a sword up to the clouds, to the sky. And then you have the Page of Pentacles. The Page of Pentacles is standing like on a meadow. You can see mountains behind and trees. And he's standing there looking at a coin, at his pentacle. So, depending on if there was a question to these cards, a question can also make it easier if someone has a question. So, it might make it easier to get something intuitively because then you already have a question in mind, and normally you do tend to be more precise that way. But sometimes it can get harder too. But if you've never really done anything like this before, I think overthinking maybe is not great. I think kind of go with what you feel and what comes to you straight away. I think that's great practice. I am an overthinker and I always overthink. And I stutter when I speak and then I can't find words, which is really annoying. So, what can we say about this? The Knight of Wands, this person, what intuitively comes to me, like this person is a hot-headed person with lots of ideas. He has so many ideas, but because he's a little bit hot-headed and he's also on a horse, right? Maybe he's trying to execute them a little bit too fast and things might not go too well because if you're too hot-headed, the ideas might just crash and burn. So I see the Page of Swords, which has the sword up in the sky, standing on like a little Irish cliff, like I feel like it's an Irish cliff that is green. And the swords we know are about logic, so this is something I find like help this hot-headedness and to help the idea. So many ideas. Maybe is good for this person to just stand still, be still for a while, and just think about the ideas logically. What can you do? What is not possible right now? And where to start right now instead of doing everything at once. Maybe also think about that. Now I'm thinking too much. I'm overthinking now. Also, knowing that the swords is the air and the wands is the fire. The air, if it's too strong, is going to blow out the fire. But also, if it's steady enough, then the fire keeps burning. And it kind of tells me that this person should just stop and think about all these ideas and see where there's like this logical beginning. Because it's also a page. A page is the first court card. So that would be a beginning in my mind. And the Page of Pentacles, the third card, is also a page. So it's also the first. He's also first in the court cards. And the page is standing there looking at the coin. So this tells me if this person could just get all these ideas, all this passion he has is basically a passion to do something. But almost like there's this passion of doing something, but you just don't know where to start. And this is where you can start, is to take a moment, think about what it is that you're doing. And this is how you can bring your ideas into fruition. And the page is telling you that it might be a small beginning, but this is something that is going to happen, is going to flourish, and is going to materialize itself. So all this passion that this person has, if you could just stand back, think about it, be a little bit logical, and start slowly, it means that this is when the ideas will start to take shape. And I'm trying to say this person because it doesn't really matter with the court cards as well if it's a woman or a man. It's really about the actions. It can be as well, obviously, but it really depends who you're reading for. So it doesn't have to be very specific like that either. It's mostly about what's depicted on the cards. And I think these are the kind of thoughts that you can have even if you haven't read a lot of books or even if you don't know a lot about tarot cards. And I think this is a really good way to start. You don't have to, draw 3 cards, or you can draw 1, or you can draw 10 cards. It's really up to you when you're reading. But I think this is a great way to practice and start. And you'll see that many times, because these symbols are in the cards, so many times, even when you're looking at them intuitively, when you read the book and you read about the cards, you'll see that many times, many of the things that you see will be in the book as well. And I think it's great because it also makes you remember this much better when you can see it yourself first, and you will remember the actions and the emotions, so you will connect to the cards better. I hope this was helpful for anyone, and I think it's a fun way to get used to your deck, and you really bond with it as well, and it's just so much fun to shuffle, right? So I think, yeah, if you're interested in tarot, you should definitely go ahead and try it, because there's not really any wrong or right when it comes to intuition, really. And once you feel like you are more inclined to read a book and learn more about the cards, then you just go ahead and do it. But it's always more fun to start with the fun part than the maybe less fun part where you have to read and remember things. I think it's quite fun to just get into it and see what happens. All right, I'm going to have some tea now, and You guys take care of yourselves and we'll speak soon. Bye.